that she could lose not just her business, but her home, her livelihood, everything.
Absolutely, yes. That's what's at stake for her.
Good evening and welcome to the rest of the news. We have a really special program for you, and our guest is John Brewer. John, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I have been involved with really AFA and especially the marriage issue probably for the last 10 years, ever since our Kentucky marriage amendment. And recently I followed that all the way up to the Capitol steps and for the oral hearing. Just seemed like since it's in my backyard, it was appropriate that I be up there.
So you went all the way to Washington, the Supreme Court building.
I went all the way to the Supreme Court building. I felt like that many other sides were being heard, but it was very important for God's side to be heard, and so that's the side. We actually styled what we did as an amicus brief, a friend of the court brief. But and we tried to work through a few scriptures and stuff and talk to people.
Now, this is when you were talking to other people that were at the
oral hearing, yeah.
Yeah.
Outside, nobody was getting inside, but we were considerably outnumbered, but we had God's protection.
Well, that's great. Now, you know, there have been a number of people that have been attacked because of their faith and their stand on this issue of marriage and whether marriage should be redefined or not. And this one lady, I mean, there's a lot of them, but this one lady, we wanted to show a clip of her explanation of what it was all about. Her name is Barnella Stutzman, and she is a florist, and she did not want to make flowers for a homosexual wedding. So she told the gentleman that she wasn't going to be able to make that, even though they were friends. And after that, the ACLU got involved and said, oh, we're going to take your business away from you. We're going to take your house away from you. We're going to take your retirement fund away from you. We're going to take everything away from you unless you have the same beliefs we have and do what we tell you to do. So let's just, if we could, show that clip of this issue.
We're very honored to have with us Barry Stutzman and Kristen Wagner. Barry is the owner of Arlene's Flower Shop in the state of Washington, and Kristen is Senior Vice President and Legal Counsel at Alliance Defending Freedom. Barry, we are so honored to have you with us tonight. Someone who you're heroic to us, and we're blessed by the stand that you're taking. Share with us what happened that day when a longtime client walked into your flower shop.
Well, Rob had been in twice before and asked for me and told the staff that he was getting married, so I knew he was coming. And when he came in, and he started talking about his marriage, I put my hand on his and I said, Rob, I'm sorry, I can't do your wedding because of my faith in Jesus Christ. And he says, I understand. And we talked about why he was getting married and how he got engaged and about his mom walking him down the aisle. And he said, well, do you know any other florist? And I said yes, and I recommended 3 because I knew that he wanted a good job done and I knew he wanted something different. And we hugged each other and he left. And Rob and I were fine till the Attorney General and the ACLU started bullying me and threatening me.
Bullying and threatening you because you were following your faith.
Yes, ma'am.
And you had worked with Rob on other jobs. You had worked with him on flowers. This was a longtime friend.
Yes, he would always come in and pick out unique and different vases and say, do your thing.
Well, Kristen, what happened legally? Why would the Attorney General of Washington sue this sweet grandmother? And where's this case in the courts?
Well, he sued this sweet grandmother because he had an agenda that he wanted to follow, and it had a lot more to do with politics than law. The case is unprecedented, and he sued under the Consumer Protection Act. He also sued her in her personal capacity, not just her business, but her personal assets are at risk. That means she's going to lose everything she has if she doesn't prevail in an appeal. I think that we can see that it was the lesbian and gay groups that are advocating and through big business and really putting people like Baronell at risk across this nation.
How do people hear when they say, oh, well, it's a right to refuse service? How do we respond?
I say exhibit number 1. Baronell and the other plaintiffs across this, or the defendants across this nation, you meet them and you're overcome with their meekness, their humility, and their love for other people. She did not discriminate based on sexual orientation. She served this man for nearly a decade and considered him a friend. It was an event that she declined to participate in, and that's a key distinction.
The hate mail and the threats that we received, I learned a whole bunch of new words that I had to look up, and they weren't very nice. And the other thing I've learned is that our First Amendment right is just being trampled on. The judge told me that I can have my religion, but I can't practice it. So that's like saying I'm in the four walls of the church, but once I leave the church, I can't be a Christian and run my business. So that's like telling Rob and Kurt they can be a homosexual couple inside their four walls, but once they leave their home, they can't do that anymore.
Okay, John, what do you think of that?
It would be unbelievable if I didn't know the times that we were living in. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, it seems to be more and more commonplace. I look around and I see Christians of all different kinds being persecuted. And there's a book that was recently put out by, I can't remember her last name, Kristen, I could look it up, but it's called The Silencing. And it's just recently made the bestseller list or whatever.
Really?
And it talks all about the various ways, and this is written from a liberal perspective. The woman is liberal, and she's actually telling that this isn't the kind of liberal she understood. So it is a cause of concern for all of us.
Yeah, and there are a lot of cases all over the country where the I would say the activist judges are trying to force their value system down the throat of everybody in the nation. And so the freedom of religion seems to go out the window. As you remember in this video we just showed, a lot of people are being denied, so the freedom of religion, you know, that this country was based on, founded on, is being pushed out the window. They're just trying to push their religion, which is humanism and, you know, anti-God, anti-Bible, and they're trying to push that down everybody's throat, it seems to me.
Well, you know, it's funny. I just started a blog on Google, on their blogger, and I thought to myself, well, I need to read their content policy because, you know, Google is San Francisco based and they have some reputation for doing mischievous things, and so I read their policy, and they have a hate policy, and this is a policy that it will include the, you know, hateful statements about religion, but it also includes sexual orientation and sexual identity. And basically what's happening with places like Google and other big businesses and stuff is that religion is sort of taking a back seat. It's like if your view conflicts with that sexual identity and orientation, then you better shut up. You better sit down and shut up, because that's hate speech as far as they're concerned.
Right. Now, you know, this lady, Barnell Stutzman, she received a huge amount of hate speech. And So, it seems like you got a double standard here. If you don't believe in God, then you can say anything or do anything you want in terms of hate speech. But if you believe in God, oh, well, you have to be real careful, like you say.
Well, I tried to understand it a little bit from their view, and obviously I'm not in agreement with their view. But from their view, I can see, I have looked in the eyes of people who opposed us in the past, and I've heard it all. And I've experienced the death threats and everything.
Yeah.
And so what I could see, what they see is they think, now, homosexuals have a higher suicide rate. They don't live as long, etc.
Right.
And this is what Mike Huckabee brought out, and his he did an amicus brief to the Supreme Court as well. But the thing about it is, that point never gets brought out. It's just, that we're hating them.
Yeah.
And really, we're not trying to hate them. We're trying to love them.
Right.
I had a BBC reporter actually come up to me, and I told him he wanted to know how I explained myself as far as opposing this, and he was trying to explain it to his European audience.
Yeah.
And I said, it's really simple. It's like this: if your friend had a radioactive charm that he found, and he wore it around him, around his chest, and you knew it was radioactive, the loving thing to do is not to let him just keep hanging on to that radioactive charm, because it's going to eventually kill him.
Yeah.
But to try to convince him to, take it off, remove it,
Right.
whatever.
Right. Well, one of the things that was in that video is the judge apparently told Barnella that she could believe in God if she wanted to, but only as long as she was in the church building.
Right.
She could not go outside and practice her faith. So, that seems to be what they're coming at. As I was thinking about this, it seems that, as my understanding is, whenever the people have had a chance to vote on the issue of same-sex marriage, they, in general, reject it.
Maybe there are 3 states, northeastern states maybe, that have actually voted a referendum that are for it. But every other instance, it's been judicial fiat.
Yeah.
Or a legislature that's kind of a rogue legislature that,
Yeah.
they get it through.
Now, I was thinking of a Bible verse in Joel where it says, in the last days, something to the effect, in the last days, God's going to pour His Spirit out on all the people, and those that call on the name of the Lord will be saved. And it seems to me that there are a lot of people that are beginning to realize what the Obama administration is doing, and they're beginning to work to protect their children against his agenda. And that's why 6 months ago or so we had that landslide rejection of the Obama agenda. Again, if the people get a chance to vote on it, that probably it won't be it won't pass.
That's what we hope will happen in the Supreme Court, is that they will pass it back to the states and say,
Yeah.
the states should have their own rights to do that.
Yeah. I guess, what is the 10th Amendment says that anything that the federal government is specifically given, the rights they're not specifically given belong to the states.
Or the people.
So it seems to me that that would be a reasonable thing to do.
You would think that would be a reasonable argument. I can't imagine a sane argument otherwise, but we shall see.
That's right. That's right. Well, tell us some more about what happened in Washington when you were up there for the oral arguments. What was that, a month or two ago?
It was actually April 28th. We scrounged and got together, all the equipment and everything. Arrived there with just a couple of hours of sleep.
Well, you drove up?
Yep, we drove and drove back, whatever. And it was all kind of a rushed affair. But the thing was, there's certain things. What really spoke to me and what I felt like God wanted me to say there was that, when you read Leviticus 18, which outlines all the kinds of behaviors, sexual behaviors that are not okay with God, and you come across homosexuality and that. What it says towards the end is it says, I kicked the people out of these lands for doing these kinds of behaviors. And if you do these kinds of behaviors, I will kick you out too. And so, I don't see how any serious Christian can see that and read that and not think that somehow that doesn't apply to us.
We just don't know what's going to happen. I'm hoping that the people realize what the Obama administration is up to, and they will, protect their children and like you say, children need a mother and a father.
Right.
And I think that's pretty obvious to most people, and so I'm hoping that they will, oppose some of this Obama agenda.
Well, what I didn't finish a minute ago, and I kind of lost track. What I was going to say is the reason that these people a lot of times hate Christians is because of all these various illnesses and problems that they have. They somehow feel like that if we weren't around, if we Christians weren't around, they wouldn't be feeling all that. In other words, we are their source of problems, and so they sort of develop this hate and rage because if somehow we were eliminated. But what they fail to recognize is that it's their conscience that's not going to go away, even if we are. So, although I understand them and I try to have a dialogue with them on that basis, you still have to stand firm and love the people.
We're in a cultural war.
Yes, we are.
It just seems that God is going to have the last say, no matter how mad people get. Still, God is going to have the last say about all of this.
The summary judgment was entered at the trial court, and we'll be filing an appeal asking for direct review at the state Supreme Court and arguing that Christians and people of all faith and people of no faith have the right to live and work consistent with their core convictions.
So this lady is really a martyr in a sense that she's being sued not only for her business and for her faith, but also they're going to take her house away from her and her retirement fund and everything. And that seems kind of excessive.
It does seem excessive, but out west and up in that part of the country, it might not seem so excessive to them.
Yeah, I guess this was in the state of Washington.
Yeah.
So, which is, I guess, a pretty liberal state. And the Attorney General and the ACLU are the ones behind punishing this woman for her faith. And we just don't know if what's going to happen. It reminds me of the riot they had in Michigan, I guess it was, where some missionaries went up there and tried to talk with some of the Muslims,
Mm-hmm.
and they started throwing rocks at them, and it came away all bloody and everything. But when the missionaries took it to court, they won.
Yeah.
So, we're hoping that there is still some respect for the Constitution, and
I think there may be some respect for the Constitution from 5 members of the court. I'm not sure how much respect there is from about 3 or 4 others.
right. But that was quite an inspiration. And then the missionaries went back up again the next in a year or two, something like that, and the same thing happened, and they went to court again, and I don't know what the outcome was. It should be coming out soon. But here again, it's the idea of a few people, radical people that are trying to say, oh, the Constitution doesn't apply now, and you have to do what we want you to do. You have to believe what we want you to believe, or else we're going to come against you, like
Intimidate you, threaten you.
Threaten you.
I mean, it wasn't that long ago when there were people trying to get a hold of the lists of people who had petitioned out in California for their own marriage amendment and stuff, and on it goes. I mean, bullying is their they are the jihadists I would fairly say that not all homosexuals are like that.
Yeah.
But the ones that are, they don't hardly know any limits.
Right. Yeah, if you do something they don't like, you're going to get hate mail and death threats and all of that. So, and then they say, oh, well, we're for freedom for everybody, or we're for, I forget what they call it, but they say, oh, we're for everyone having their own opinions and everything, except only if it agrees with them.
Tolerance is a word
that
it's a word they use all the time, but it's a word that only it's like a one-way street.
Yeah.
It doesn't go both ways.
A lot of these issues are coming up. The gay marriages and this big landslide victory that we had 6 months ago, I think encourages us that there will be more and more people that realize what is happening and will oppose the getting rid of the Constitution and will protect their children. There are a lot of issues going on that we probably can't get involved in all of this, but there are a lot of things going on, and really we'd like to invite people to become part of the movement to stop the anti-Constitution movement and the anti-Christian movement. And we have an email program. We could email you when a lot of these things are coming up for a vote. And if you would call us right now at 893-2444, we will put you on our email list, and you'll receive an email when there's an important vote coming on. And you just click on an action button, and it will send a letter to your congressman or your senator or your state legislators, and you can be a part of what is happening to really keep freedom and freedom of religion and the Constitution alive. So that's one thing that we would like to do, is have you call that number right now, 893-2444. 444. So it's one thing to talk about these things, and it's something else to click on the action button and send a letter and have personally involved in being a part of what God is doing to turn our country back to God and being one nation under God. There's the other thing we have is a bumper sticker, if I can find it. It says, "United under God, we are invincible." That nothing can stop, here it is, nothing can stop us if we work together and stand for what we believe, that we are invincible, just like the people that started America. If you wouldn't have given them a chance, they had not enough to eat, and they were Indians, hostile Indians, and a lot of things against them, but they put their faith in the Lord Jesus, and they worked together, and they built this great nation. And we can do the same thing. With God's help, you know, the Bible says your labor is not in vain in the Lord. So we can stand for what's right, and God will help us. And this is free. If you'd like one of these, just call that same number, 893-2444, and we'll send you one of these. And we have another one that just says Jesus, and it's the Jesus bumper sticker. You may have seen them going around in Louisville, and we'll send you that free too. In fact, we'll send you enough for your whole church. Just call that same number, 893-2444. So, you know, we're not here to talk about problems so much as solutions and what you and I can do about it. And everybody's important. Is that right?
That's right.
So we would like you to get on our email list, get one of these bumper stickers, get the Jesus bumper stickers. We have about 50 DVDs. They're free, and we'd be glad to send you those DVDs. There's, my favorite is one called Agenda, that explains how all of these issues came up and who's behind it and who's paying for it and why are these things happening. And that, have you seen the Agenda?
Yes.
Don't you think that's a good video?
Oh, it is a good video.
So I think it's one of the best. Oops, we're out of time. So John Brewer, we appreciate you being on the program, and tune in again next week for the rest of the news.
You've no doubt heard of the controversy of some states passing laws to protect religious freedom.
Oh, I don't. Okay, well, let's even say no picture, but you can write on it, Ben loves Stephen forever, and have our hands maybe holding.
Many of you probably read about it from places like this, but that is not what's happening here. See, these laws are allowing businesses to maintain their private right of refusal to be involved with certain activities, like, say, baking a gay wedding cake.